You know why it says 5,000 men? Women and children didn't count. Can you imagine that? So the crowd was probably a lot bigger than 5,000, maybe even 10,000 or more when you count the kids. And the fact that this multiplication of loaves and fishes left enough left to feed all those 5,000 men, who of course ate first, and then the women and children, is really an amazing, amazing feat. And when I studied this passage in the New Testament class that I had, one of the things that the teacher said, it's very possible that the loaves and fishes were physically multiplied. But he said, wouldn't it be even a greater miracle if Jesus' preaching touched each of those people and opened up their hearts to share their food with the others? And both of those, as far as I'm concerned, would constitute a miracle. Usually we're pretty, I being an only child, I kind of guard my cereal from the rest of the family sometimes. Confession time. So anyway, it's a huge, huge miracle. And I wanted to point out a couple of other things too. First is that the symbols, the fish and the bread, are both symbols. Anybody have ideas what they were symbols for in the early church?
I always think fish are men.
Right.
And I think that bread is communion.
I think the bread exactly is the Eucharist, Holy Communion. And that's a prefiguring of what we do. Excellent work. You get two stars for that. Which means we'll probably give you more jobs, but that's okay. So that's a pretty big prefiguring as well. And the fact that they picked up everything is even a more miraculous thing in my mind. That was a very cynical statement, but probably very true. ¿Entendiste? Oh dear Lord, I love that. That is probably absolutely right. Probably so. You can't imagine without the ECW there to cook. I mean, who's going to cook? Although I do understand we have some very good male chili cooks in the congregation as well. So a miraculous feeding. Miraculous that all these people were fed and that there were enough scraps to pick up into 12 baskets, symbol for 12 disciples and 12 tribes of Israel. So that's a double whammy there. And I think that's important to keep in mind as well, that this is a sign of Christ reaching out to all the people of Israel, even though he was initially rejected, and reaching out to all those around him, even though they probably weren't the people that the Pharisees would have approved of. Why? Because many of them were poor. And in order to keep the dietary laws, you had to have a certain amount of money to pull that off. Because you had to have two sets of dishes, one kashrut, one kosher, and the other treff for other things that weren't quite kosher. You had to have the ability to buy all these special foods to keep kosher. So, there's a considerable cost involved there. And to have these people fed is a great, great symbol to them that Christ came to feed everybody, not just the rich. And sometimes I think it's very easy to lose sight of that, because many times history is written by the elites. And our tradition in Christianity is very different from that. We have a tradition in including everybody in that, and many of the disciples were from very, very humble backgrounds. So that really is good news as well. All kinds of different layers here in this scripture reading. Let's see, what else did I want to say? The feeding of the 5,000, the disciples, the bread and the fishes, and being able to clean up. Now, can you imagine going to one of the World Cup matches and having to clean up all the detritus? You know what the Japanese fans did? They cleaned up every stadium in which they played, their own stuff and that of the opposite team as well. What a great sign of servanthood that they took on. And I certainly wouldn't want to take all that on, but good for them for doing it. And they can serve as an example for us that sometimes service doesn't have to be anything fancy, getting up here and dressing up in fancy hot clothes, but also it can have to do with the most humble service. And I think that's important as well. And we didn't even talk about the porta potties that they would have had to have for a national park event. So we won't go there, but they would have had to have them for the national park service. So anyway, I think I've said about enough, so I'll stop there and open it up to you with your thoughts. Reverend or Reverend? Yes, Charles.
I see an analogy here between the Old Testament and the New Testament. The bread is not created with manna. Bread is known as the staff of life.
Right, exactly. Yep. And certainly in the Eucharist, it is that. It is the staff of life. It is our source of spiritual life. And that's a great analogy. And it's kind of a bridge, isn't it, between the imagery of the Old Testament and the imagery of the New. Yeah. Please.
I see the staff of life, the bread, feeding our bodies, and our bodies need to be filled and satisfied in order for our souls to be receptive, I think. So that there's like this dichotomy, feed the soul, feed the body, and Jesus understood that both are important.
Absolutely. And that's one reason that many missionary groups start out by feeding people. Because if you're hungry, it's pretty hard to concentrate on things which are spiritual. So first meet the physical need, and then we can move into the spiritual realm. Good point. Others? Yes, ma'am.
It's the part where it kind of goes back to last week in the faith, the little bit of faith and the negativity that like goes against having faith. And Jesus said, you feed them, and they were like, "Nah, we really don't have anything to give," and because all we have is this. And he was like, and they could have been like, "Oh, okay, here's what we have," instead of they were like, "No, we only have," they didn't say no, but I was just reading into that a lot.
I think that's a very interesting and very deep thought and another interpretation into this passage, because how many times instead of living,
all I have is this.
yeah, all we have is 27 people or 28 people. Well, that's more than twice what Jesus had to start out with.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a pretty darn good base. And the fact is, we've grown in the last couple of months as well, even over the summer, which again is a miracle, because people are taking vacations and going out of town. So I think that's another really good insight and another part which I had not seen quite so clearly, but I think you're right on. Others? Speak now. Thank you all for coming this morning, and thank you for participating in this service of worship, and Tom, also in the sermon.